All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the House Environment and Transportation Committee, Thursday, March 12th. Voting list number 6. We have one bill on the voting list. I do want to start by thanking a few people. This bill is quite an undertaking. It's a different size and scale than a lot of the other bills that, at least in my 3 years on this committee, we've dealt with. So I want to first start by thanking Steve, our counsel in particular, who's been working very hard on this issue and on this work. I want to thank Dwayne from the Speaker's Office, as well as the Speaker herself, and Michelle Furman from the Speaker's Office, who've been very engaged. And of course, the bill we are working on is sponsored by the Speaker. And of course, Trish and Mana and Dom and Christian and Rose, who have all been really great at making sure we kind of get all the moving pieces together, getting the copy of the amendment out to all of you, getting these nice binders printed up. I also want to talk a little bit about our process. You know, when we got here, we started with a series of briefings, pretty in-depth, lots of good questions. And I know that was just the public portion. I know all of you had about 1,000 other meetings with advocates, especially those first few weeks as people tried to, get to know the members of the new committee. And then, of course, every bill had a hearing, and almost everything we're going to discuss today is in a bill that had a hearing. There are a few exceptions, and we could talk about those, but almost everything had its own standalone bill hearing. Then, of course, under the leadership of Chair Fraser Hidalgo, who has done an amazing job with all of this, the subcommittee began meeting and having work sessions. They voted out a few bills, but most of what the subcommittee was doing was working through bills and discussing them and learning about the issues and learning about how the RPS works and how net energy metering works and how SRECs work and all of these technical things that we've all come to know and love over the past 60 or so days. Then, of course, earlier this week, the subcommittee began working off of the Speaker's bill, the bill that is before us, HB 1532, to turn it into a delivery mechanism for our other energy policy. There is a lot of precedent for doing this. As recently as last year, I think maybe all but 2 of you were here last year when we considered, I don't mean here on the committee, I mean here in the House, when we considered the Next Generation Energy Act, which was a similar bill of a number of different energy policies all put together. So there is ample precedent for this kind of approach, and so that's what we're doing here. The subcommittee met for 2 very long meetings, going into great in-depth detail on the various proposals, and put that all together in a package. Now, of course, DLS does great work, but they do have limitations. And so it's not as though after that meeting, Steve gets to press a button, print a reprint, and go home, right? It's a very intensive process, and that process takes time, okay? And so that is what's been happening for the past 24 hours is DLS has been trying to make this work administratively, right, mechanically, so that we have something to work off of. And we got the work product back from the DLS process, and I'll discuss the form of it in a moment, at around 2:55 today. And it went to you guys at around 3 o'clock today. And it didn't only go to you guys. We didn't just send it to the members of the committee. We sent it to basically every advocate that we have been interacting with and who submitted testimony on these bills, because we wanted people to be able to see what we were doing. Even though, of course, we had open live stream, work sessions on the bill and showed all the amendments on the screen on those work sessions. We wanted people to see the bill. And, frankly, I could have probably just called the vote right after we were done with bill hearings today. And I bet the outcome wouldn't be all that different than what we're going to do tonight. But I didn't think that was the right thing to do. And I know that's not how the Speaker wants to do things. So we took a 3-hour break. And I know many of you were not breaking during that time. You were navigating many other things. But you did hopefully have a chance during that time to peruse the bill and be reminded about many things that you heard about in bill hearings and in work sessions and in your other meetings and briefings throughout the year. So now where we are is 6:07 on Thursday, and we have 2 amendments before us. Now, oftentimes we work off of a reprint, which is very nice, and I'll just be totally candid with you. A 122-page bill is challenging for DLS to create a reprint. They're working on it for tomorrow, but they were not able to do that in the timely fashion that we would all like for tonight. So what you have before you is 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 1 is technical. It's sort of a change to the title. Amendment 2 is the substantive provisions of the bill. Now, we did not strike the Speaker's entire bill and put in a new bill. Many of the provisions in the Speaker's bill, large load tariff sizing changes, changes to multi-year rate plans, changes to Empower, changes to large capacity resource definition, changes to nuclear energy, zero emission credits, PPRP study of streamlined permitting. All of those things remain in the bill. But for drafting convenience, even those provisions that remained, we struck, and then they were re-put in. And again, this is part of making it workable for DLS. So there is lots of meat left from the original bill in addition to all the added fat I put on top of it, right? So we have a lot to get through here. And frankly, I'm not entirely sure the best way to do it. What I think I'm going to do is do a sort of topic summary and tell you what page that material is on so you have a chance to look at it and make sure you understand it and ask any questions that you might have about it. And hopefully that will be adequate. If not, we can do a page flip one by one if people want to do that. And then, of course, I would like to hopefully adopt these 2 amendments, and I know some other members have amendments that they would like to offer as well. After that process is done, I hope we'll vote out the bill as amended. Just so you know, it will go to the floor on tomorrow. But of course, my hope is that I will get up, I will, go through the reading of the amendments, adopt the committee report, and then, of course, special order till Monday. As you all know, we're coming at 3 p.m. on Monday for the floor, and members of either party, deserve time to get their amendments together and present their ideas to the House and have those ideas considered. And so we want to give people ample time for that process. And so that's where we're hoping to go from here. But of course, first we got to get through the amendments before us. So again, I'm going to start just going by topic, just because I think that's a little bit easier. Now, I am here to tell you that I am not going to skip a topic. So I'm not trying to hide anything from you all. But if you are concerned about something, and if you think we didn't mention something on page 27 that you want to ask about, light up. Light up. The page numbers are in the top left-hand corner. Light up on your mic so we can make sure that whatever your question is covered. There are some places where it's just a lot of repeated code that is either being inserted because we're dealing with that section of the code and it needs to be in there to be amended. In other places we're bracketing out things. There's a lot of stuff in here. There's not necessarily, I would say, a substantive provision to discuss on every page. So if you say, Mr. Chairman, you skipped page 37, I didn't necessarily skip it because I was trying not to tell you something. I skipped it because there's nothing on there that's a change to the law. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. Anyone have questions about what we're going to do right now? Yes, Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you go through by topic, sometimes legislative ease as a language in these bills makes it hard to figure out what topic you're talking about. So if you would make that clear.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm going to summarize what we're doing in the bill. Okay. I probably also talk in a little too technicalese for you, Delegate Foley, but I will try to make it clear what we're doing. And of course, Steve is here to keep me honest. Okay. The first topic is on page 25. So turn your hymn books to page 25. Okay, so it starts on page 25 and goes to page 26. This is altering the definition of a large load customer for purposes of something called the large load tariff. Last year in the Next Generation Energy Act, the General Assembly created this concept of a large load tariff, which is a way of having the PSC have the ability to have these large load customers, like data centers, cover more of the cost, right? So it's not just everything going on the ratepayers. The threshold used last year was 100 megawatts. This lowers it to 25. That is consistent with Virginia and Pennsylvania. And we also changed what's called the load factor from 80% to 75%. Steve, do you want to say anything about the change to the load factor?
Basically just trying to catch a few more data centers is moving both of them in the same direction.
Great, we have a question from Delegate Foley.
Yeah, I'm already lost. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't even see that on page 25.
Yeah, so flip to page 26. Sorry, it starts on 25 and goes to 26.
I don't see it on 26 either.
Okay, so if you look at the big number 3 and the little I.
The large load customer. Flip the page.
brackets
Oh,
100 and
okay.
puts in 25.
Okay, so
And it
that's
brackets
new
80 and puts in
language.
75.
I didn't think that was new language, but that's new
No,
language.
the only new language is what's in bold, the 25 megawatts, 25, and 75%.
Okay, thank you. The 25.
Okay. Are there any other questions on the changes to the large load tariff? Okay. Next, turn your prayer books to page 99. 99.
You could go, if you want to.
You guys ever read those Choose Your Own Adventure books when you were a kid? You had to flip all around to the different pages? So it's like that. So it starts on page 99, but runs to page 100. And what this does, and this was in the speaker's original bill, is allows, so we have something called multi-year rate plans that the Public Service Commission authorized in 2020. An issue with multi-year rate plans is the ability of the utility to reconcile, right? Come back and say, actually, we got this right, we got this wrong. Last year, there was a change made in the Next Generation Energy Act that has been interpreted as banning reconciliation. And so we're coming back and saying, actually, reconciliation is allowed if it is in favor of the ratepayer. So if the ratepayer would benefit from that reconciliation can occur. If the reconciliation is just in favor of the utility, well, the utility should have done a better job projecting. They can hire more consultants and attorneys to help them next time. Are there questions about one-way reconciliation?
Say that again. Reconciliation is allowed to the customers.
Yes, to the benefit of the ratepayers, but not to the benefit of the utilities. Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the benefit of ratepayers, meaning what? A refund, a credit? What would benefit?
Yep. So if you look at D in the middle of the page, page 100, the commission may require a public service company, that's the utilities, to include a reconciliation procedure in its multi-year rate plan to refund customers the difference between, and that's the different numbers.
Thank
so
you.
it is a refund. Other questions? Okay. We are going to go to page 55. 55. Guys, we're going to be jumping all around, all right? It's okay. Okay, so this is the start of a number of changes we have on the Empower Maryland program, okay? Empower Maryland is a very important program that requires us to be more energy efficient. That is a good thing, right? At least from my perspective, we don't want to be locking in high energy prices for all time by not improving efficiency. And we've had great success with this program. So we want to preserve this program. We also recognize that ratepayers are suffering right now. We want to make sure we're also addressing that issue. So what starts on page 55 is we are eliminating gas in power entirely. So there'll be a transition, but basically gas power, so if you are on Washington Gas and you look at your gas bill, you'll see gas and power surcharge. That will go away for gas. Now, it'll be a transition because we want to make sure they can pay for things that they're currently, winding down, and they have some old debt that they need to deal with, but that will transition away over time. Not for electric. Don't get too excited, Delegate Grammer. Not for electric, just on the gas side. Yeah, you almost snuck that through. So that is the first piece there. If you look at page 59, you'll see that transition that I was describing, the transition mechanism, so that doesn't just, it's not a cliff. You'll see a number of sites throughout where it's just bracketing or gas company. Again, we're getting rid of gas company. And then you get to page 61, and you see a changing of the goals. So under current law, next year, Empower was supposed to rise to 2.5%. Instead of doing that, we are reducing the goal for 3 years to 1.75%. And then after the 3 years, going through the Empower works on 3-year plan cycles, we're going to go up 0.25% until we get back to 2.5. Yes, Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you be so kind and start at the beginning? You began talking about changes to Empower's goals. I'm not understanding what the percentages you're referring to even mean.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is a very complicated mix of electricity usage with greenhouse gas reductions. So they have somehow figured out, in a way that I learned today during your math lesson that I'd never be able to do, how to do kind of this, basically convert greenhouse gas emissions into improved energy efficiency. So that is what the numbers reflect.
Thank you.
Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'm just asking out of curiosity, and I know that we won't be able to appease everybody. I was just curious if, what the advocates' thoughts were on the goals and the fluctuation.
Yeah, so of course, I don't want to speak for the advocates, and I know we're not calling advocates up during this meeting, and I know they're blowing up your phone. I will say that in general, many of the advocates we met with, the environmental community, were comfortable temporarily lowering the goal. That was a place they saw some beneficial savings. They don't appreciate, and they were very supportive of getting rid of gas and power. They do not appreciate everything about the power changes. I do not want to represent that. But the actual just lowering of the goal for some amount of time, they were not against. They thought that was one way to kind of deal with the moment we're in. They have some other concerns, though, that I'll get to in a moment.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the reduction of these goals, does eliminating the gas and power program, what effect does that have on the goal? I mean, what effect did that have on the reduction of greenhouse gases, if any?
Yeah, it shouldn't have any effect because the goal still, the goal is set, so it doesn't matter. Go ahead, Steve.
The gas companies have their own separate goals, so that's my understanding. So the percentages that you see here are for the electric companies.
Yes.
So removing gas has a separate goal that isn't in here with numbers. It's established administratively. So that is coming out as well with the gas. It's like the two related pieces are being repealed together. The electric companies are still responsible for the electric percentages you see that are being altered.
So these are just electric percentages, essentially.
Yes.
But what you're saying is that the gas percentages are somewhere else?
They're in here, they were repealed, and they are, because they were added on after, so this code has been added
Okay.
to many times. So there was when gas was added, there was also a requirement to establish gas company targets too. They're separate from,
From these?
yes. Mhm.
Okay, so because there's an impact by taking gas out of the program, I would assume. It might be a small impact, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. So that's not reflected in here because this just applies to electric. I just want to understand.
I think that's
Okay.
And
all right,
again,
thank you.
those who support strong sustainability goals, we're very much in favor of eliminating
Okay,
gas and power.
okay.
So just something context to keep in mind. Obviously, it doesn't mean you have to agree with
Yeah,
them.
okay, thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
I got a scenario, if Steve, maybe you can help me with this. So if you have a unit that's a downdraft gas unit with air conditioning hooked into the same unit, that's electric, how does that factor into what we're talking about now? So you get, it's actually a combination unit. So if you have a heat and air conditioned system, that the heat is a gas downdraft and the air conditioning is powered by electricity in the same unit, combination unit, how would that factor into this in power?
I'm sorry, I do not know exactly, but I do not believe gas-powered appliances would be eligible for
Well,
rebates under the
that's what you
electric.
just said, that the gas would be, it's a different.
Yeah, in terms of the how you are powering something, the gas that is coming in, you're not going to be paying in power on that anymore.
Right.
The electricity coming in, you will be paying in power on.
So what you would have gotten previously for that unit will be separated, gas and electric will be separated.
Even in terms of like the rebate that you could get for
Yes.
putting in a more efficient unit?
Yes,
Yeah, there will be some change to the programs, I think, as a result of this.
that's my basic question.
Yeah, but most of the programs, as I understand it, will
But the
will not be
gas
affected.
portion will be eliminated,
Right,
the rebate.
right,
Okay, thank you.
right. Which of course, right now is being paid for by Empower on everybody's power bills, which we're getting rid of.
But there's quite a few of those kind of units in my district that are combinations,
Yep.
gas and electric.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a heat pump. AC is the electric portion.
Right, but I know some of them have both, right? So it's like heat pump market below.
But I just want to make sure I
Okay.
understand the rebate.
So page 63, this is a little bit different than what the subcommittee discussed last night. Last night, there was a lot of discussion about basically crediting community solar that's plugged into a utilities kind of grid as part of the goal. And there was concern about that, and there's still concern about that, Delegate Long, from some of the advocates you were asking about. But one thing we did do was make that limited to the next 3-year cycle. So it's only for the 3-year cycle that they'll get that benefit. So what that does is allows them to use the community solar that's out there, right, to meet the goal, which means they don't need to spend as much money on doing other things, which means a lower surcharge on your bill.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out, in this section, there needs to be a technical correction. As we talked about last night, the 27 through 29 was supposed to apply to community solar and Roman 3 here, solar energy generation facilities that are interconnected to the electric company's distribution system. That didn't make it through editing, a little lost in translation, but it was meant to apply to both. We'll have to make that change.
Okay. Also on that page, there was a concern raised last night that this was some secret way to allow utilities to operate generation. That's not what it is, but we put clarifying language in there to address those concerns. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have two questions. One, Steve said something about the Roman numeral number 3. Were you saying, Steve, that Roman numeral number 3 is subject to the same time frame as Roman numeral number 2? I didn't understand what you said.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that was the intent.
Okay, so that's my first
It's
question.
a little lost in translation.
My second question is, so this solar generation is reducing the Empower goals. Do we know by how much that is?
I do not have the math. It will be determined at the commission when the companies bring their plans. They will be able to count. Right now, like, their plan would include things that reduce emissions, and now the plan will also include some emissions that are being reduced by these facilities in their service territories. That will all be subject to fact-finding during commission
Yeah,
proceedings.
so we don't have a number on, like, what that,
I do not know.
I have seen some guesstimates floating around out there, Delegate Foley, but I have no idea what the basis of those guesstimates are, so I can't comment on them.
okay, thank you.
Okay. We are going to turn, there's some additional pages on power. It's mostly striking the references to gas. We are going to turn to page 79. And I'm going to phone a friend and have Steve explain what he did on page 79.
Okay, so this is a bit of a technical change. Last year, the Next Generation Energy Act established a expedited CPCN process for dispatchable energy generation and large capacity energy resources. That was the big piece of that act that was designed to get megawatts on Maryland's grid in a quick fashion. Basically, the expedited CPCN is an incentive to build, right? It's a faster process. One of the things that could bid into that was something called a large capacity energy resource. It had some, like, the dates that are being repealed here are their interconnection approval timelines, basically. So it was set in the past. By repealing these, you allow the next round of bidding to include storage that wasn't in the interconnection queue then, but like maybe came in a couple months later. Basically allows for this process to continue for a little bit longer with projects that maybe weren't foreseen or as far along in the planning at the time. So that's what this is doing.
Yeah, there was at least one big storage project that came forward trying to get the Streamlined CPCN, and they did not qualify for kind of technical reasons, and so we wanted to open that back up a little bit to hopefully allow more projects like that to come. Of course, There were also natural gas projects. Those are proceeding through that streamlined process at the PSC, but this was targeted towards the storage projects that could not take advantage of it. Yes, Delegate Holmes.
You said the next round of bidding, PJM, they have the bidding every year, don't they? Is it every year?
Yeah, so it's actually not bidding in that sense. It's a PSC process that you go to get eligible for the streamlined permitting. This is not you're bidding into PJM to sell them electricity.
It's not capacity market, so.
Yes, I'm sorry if I used the word bidding. There should be a next procurement round for this. There is not a date certain in statute, but there is it is built in for PSC, I believe, to do it again, and I believe they're planning to do one again. I see Ben Baker shaking his head, so yes, I too will phone a friend.
For the record, Kathy was also shaking her head. All right, pages 80 and 82. Delegate Morgan, pay attention. Sorry, Delegate Bailey, you had a question on that?
Expedited CPCN. Did we adjust the estimated load carrying capacity at all?
So you don't need to do that because there's two ways you can get into the program. And that storage project you're thinking of was knocked out on both grounds. If we fix one,
Got it.
that's all they need.
Got it, thank you.
Yep. So we're on pages 80 through 82, and this deals with zero emission credits, which is a mechanism that was set up last year in the Next Gen Energy Act to support nuclear. And we got some feedback from the Public Service Commission. I'm looking for the nods to make a few changes to that they think will help make the program run a little bit better. I know there's a lot of interest in nuclear. I think we'll have an amendment from at least one of you about that later today, and I'm sure next week. And so this is to try to help with them with the mechanics of the existing program that was created last year. And you can see the pages on the bottom of changes on the bottom of page 80, and then sort of in the middle of page 82. Delegate Morgan.
I have two questions, just to make sure I'm really clear, which is hard to do. I am assuming, reading this, that we do not make nuclear a tier 1 at this point in time. Am I correct?
The materials before you do not do that, although I think we're going to have an amendment from one of your colleagues to propose that later this evening.
Okay, and then the other part is the 15% variance. Obviously, you can game the system. I don't want to game the system too much, because how are we going to determine that 15% price basis on a, if it's going to take so many years to get to a nuclear plant, 15%, you know, I can do forward math acceleration, and I don't know how we get the 15% to be a baseline for something that's going to be built 5 years from now.
I mean, in general, it would be a process at the PSC, and of course, the vendor would have, participate in that process to try to make their case. I think this is to deal with the likelihood of cost overruns in a project like this. The ones in Georgia, I think, were
Gotcha.
a much higher percentage greater than this. We don't want to give them carte blanche right now. We want to have a little bit of control over it, but I think that's going to be an ongoing process at the
Okay,
PSC.
thank you, sir.
Okay, we are going to move on to page 120. Page 120 is a study that was in the speaker's bill for the Power Plant Research Program and the Maryland Energy Administration to study streamlined permitting for basically brownfield development of generation. So it is a study. Any questions on the speaker's study? Okay. We are going to turn to page 100. Starts at the bottom of page 100 and goes for a few pages. This is going to look really familiar. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo and I enjoyed the debate on HB1 on the floor so much that we decided to put that back into this bill as well, since we are consolidating our energy proposals here in large part. And so this is just HB1 as it passed the House with a change of the effective date. It just moves the effective date up a little bit so we can benefit from it sooner.
Is this starting at 5404?
4504, yes.
No?
Delegate Boyce, can you press, yeah, go ahead, say it into the mic, Delegate Boyce, so we
No,
can
I'm
all.
saying this starts at 4504.
I couldn't hear.
Give me your microphone.
Oh, sorry. Again, this starts at 4504, HB1. And where-
HB1 starts on page 100.
At 4504.
Section 4504, yes.
4504, I'm just saying.
Yes, oh, yes, you're right, I'm sorry, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, that's exactly right. Other questions?
And the date was where? You said there was a change in the date. Is that 104,
Okay.
number 2?
I can speak to the change in the date. So as it passed the House, the effective date of House Bill 1 was June 1, 2026. That was the earliest non-emergency effective date. This bill has emergency provisions in it. This is one of those. So now this provision is effective
When the
when the
bill
bill is
passed.
signed, moving it forward, yes. It'll be effective when it becomes a chapter law. This is an emergency section.
Any other questions on that piece? Delegate Foley?
Yeah, just to be clear, so nothing else, this is exactly the same as HB1 except for that change, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next topic is net energy metering. This is fairly complicated and in multiple sections of the bill. So I'm going to try to just explain this out loud first, and then we can navigate to the different pages. Right now, there is a cap of 3,000 megawatts for net energy metering, right? Net energy metering is when you can plug in and you get, in return for providing electrons to the grid, you get the full retail rate value of that electricity, of those electrons. We have about half of that built, I think, and the other half is all like in planning. It's all starting to queue up with different projects that are being presented. So whatever you think, of the details of what we're doing here, if you support solar, you do want to figure out something to do with that cap, because projects are not going to be able to get financed soon if they're not going to be eligible to plug in and get net energy metering. However, the full retail rate is not where a lot of other states are compensating. That's not the level a lot of other states are compensating at now, including states that, I probably like California and Connecticut, right? They have shifted to a different model to make sure that the solar array is not being sort of overcompensated, that it's not being compensated for values it's not actually adding to the grid. And so what the Speaker's bill, her other bill that we're putting into this does is it creates a new 3,000 megawatt cap, but it has the PSC do sort of a proceeding to figure out what the appropriate rate pay back is, right? Like I have rooftop solar, so I have rooftop solar. So in the future, there would be a PSC proceeding to determine what rooftop solar is compensated at through the rates. In addition, the PSC will be looking at how long existing projects should be grandfathered in. So in California and Connecticut, I'm just using the two of them because I know off the top of my head, it's 20 years. So my rooftop solar will get the NEM 1, right, net energy metering 1, the full retail rate for 20 years, and then have to transition to the new model. What that amount of years will be, we don't know. It'll be up to the PSC proceeding. Now, part of the trickiness here is we need kind of a transition method, right? For projects that are currently in development, they need some certainty about what their rate is going to be as they're trying to pencil out. And so we put some provisions in about where a project sort of had to be, right, in order to benefit from NEM 1, right? And so they have to have sort of paid their interconnection fee with the utility, and they have to be constructed and in service before, I believe, July 1st, 2029. And it gets even more complicated. We set up regional caps for net energy metering so that based on your utility, there will not just be a statewide 3,000 cap, but sort of a per capita, per energy sales cap in that region. The reason for this is because if you put solar on your home in BG&E territory, the other BG&E ratepayers are the ones compensating you, right? That's how you're getting your full retail rate. And we have some parts of the state, the Eastern Shore and Western Maryland in particular, where they have a much smaller customer base, right? And so the level of cross-subsidy that is being thrust upon the individual ratepayer for their neighbor's solar is much higher. And so we're trying to help deal with our friends in the more rural communities, right? Certainly not my community, but the more rural communities, so that they get less impact on their rates from these important policies we have to encourage solar, which is a good thing to have, but make it a little less costly for them. The upshot of this is that we will probably likely not hit the first 3,000 megawatt cap before we roll over to NEM 2. And so we will never get to the maximum what's currently permissible, a maximum sort of cross-subsidy from ratepayer to ratepayer, right, which shows up on your bills. We won't get there. We'll switch to NEM 2.0 before we reach the 3,000 cap. So this will have the effect of having, not necessarily lowering your electric bill, but having it not increase as much as it otherwise would have. And Steve is going to correct me on a whole bunch of stuff.
No, I think you got the basics. I just wanted to clarify that the regional cap, the utility service territory cap for community solar in the bill right now is under net metering 1, the NEM 1, as the insiders say. So as structured now, it's for that net metering tariff, which is what is being built today. So as the transition period occurs, if you're in a utility service territory that has basically disproportionate amount of community solar, that cap would apply, even though there's an overall cap. So it does limit the capacity, the amount of community solar per service territory based on how much residential sales there are per utility. So some utilities are big, but they have a small customer base, right? So easy to build solar, but there's not as many people to cover the shared cost. So that's what this cap gets at there. And it's for the transition period under NEM 1 for community solar. Just wanted to clear that up.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the 3,000 megawatt cap, that's for the entire state. Okay, and then you would have these regional caps that would override for lack of a better term, override that.
I'm not sure I would describe it as override it, but yes.
Yeah, I don't get, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the project in the Delmarva Power and Light territory was
Right.
going to push them over their sort of proportionate part of the cap.
Right,
That would
and
not
then
go
they
into
can't
NEM.
get to they can't get, anymore. Right, okay, thank you.
In addition, the community solar industry has obligations to do low and moderate income subscribers. That's part of how community solar works in the state of Maryland. And they had some requests regarding working through the Office of Home Energy Programs to do that work instead of having to go out on their own. There was an existing study that we are amending this study language onto to allow them to study the possibility of using OHEP more directly to help with the community solar, as opposed to us making the change right now. We just need to understand how it would work. And so that is in here as well, related to the net energy metering conversation. Other questions on net energy metering? Okay, then I'm going to move on to page 31. So this is another one that's going to be spread off across a few different pages. But if you recall, Delegate Charkoudian had a bill on ATT and GETS, Advanced Transmission Technologies and Grid Enhancing Technologies. It was also in the governor's bill that we heard. So this starts some of the definitions on page 31 of that. And that continues on page 34. On page 34, you'll see additional technical definitions of grid enhancing technology. And on page 36, you will see that when a applicant is going to file their certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct transmission, they will need to show that they basically considered a GETS ATT alternative. Right? We want to do this because we want to encourage them to do them less costly, more efficient GETS and ATT alternatives before they actually build new transmission. And so this is the requirements of what they have to show in their Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity application.
Next part of this, page 46.
Thank you. And page 46 has another related issue, which is to require the utilities basically every 4 years to do kind of an ATT study and identify places where they can employ ATT. And again, the idea of this is that they use more efficient, less costly methods to deliver similar results to really big, dig or hang or underground transmission projects. Delegate Morgan.
Sir, transmission, remember, we're all 9 weeks in now. So we have supply, distribution, transmission, distribution, and usage. Will this at all affect the Piedmont reliability project that we got going on up in Frederick County, or is that mutually exclusive?
It's not that it's mutually exclusive, it's that this is forward-looking, so if they've already put their CPCN request in, this doesn't apply.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll note that it is explicitly forward-looking as well. There's actually, normally bills are forward-looking, however, there is a specific section that says for CPCNs, it's forward-looking.
So would it be fair to say? Would it be fair to sit there and say that anything after this bill is passed becomes forward-looking without the public?
Standard statutory construction is it's forward-looking unless the bill says it's not specifically.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. The next issue is, relates to Delegate Embry's bill. Delegate Embry had a bill on supplemental transmission. It turns out when you do an overhead transmission line, you have to file a CPCN, but not when you do an underground transmission line. And so her bill requires them to come in when they're also doing an underground transmission line. And so there are various places throughout where you'll see the word overhead bracketed out. That's because we want to capture all the transmission projects that the utilities are doing, not just the overhead transmission projects. So you'll see that in a number of places. Next, we can turn to page 23. The committee spent a fair amount of time on this actually early on. This was Delegate Lehman's idea to require a little transparency in your bill, where you direct people to the PSC website, the rate report, the history of their rates. Actually, Delegate Ericon, one of our honorary members, had a great idea on the floor that you could just hyperlink it instead of having like something printed out in everybody's bill. And so this tries to adopt language like that. So that's this provision here that starts on page 23 and goes to page, all the way to page 25. I don't know if she'll want to be amended on as a co-sponsor, but, all right. Any questions about that? Okay, page 109. And it actually goes on to 110. This is an amendment the speaker discussed in her testimony. As I mentioned earlier, we have things called multi-year rate plans. There are different methods to doing a multi-year rate plan, which I think is a methodology that I think 13 states do, including Maryland, obviously. What we do not want to allow anymore is for the utilities to use a forecast test year in their rate proceedings. And that is because it is quite speculative, and there's a lot of data that suggests that we are overpaying rates as a result of that. And so we want them to use different methodologies. First of all, they can always do traditional rate making. It worked for over 100 years. But there's also other ways to do multi-year rate plans, including historic test years. That would be an option going forward. Questions on that? Look on page 110. Yeah, sorry, you got to flip it over. Yep, it's my fault. I said 109, but it goes on to 110. Alternative forms of regulation may not include. Yep. Okay. Back to page 53. It actually goes on to 54, so 54, Delegate Foley, I apologize. Last year, well, we've had many great storage goals set in this state. Delegate Fraser-Delgado had a bill a number of years ago, and that work was built on last year with the Next Gen Energy Act to have transmission and distribution level storage. There's just not a lot of good reporting about how our storage progress is going, and so this just requires some reporting to make sure that we're kind of tracking what's going on with storage, since we're, frankly, banking a lot on storage as we go forward here, and so we just need to make sure we're keeping an eye on it. Any questions? And this was not from another bill. I should mention that. This was just something that I frankly thought was important and took to the subcommittee chair, and he agreed. Yes, Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I read this, this requires a report every year to the General Assembly about storage. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. We can go to page 23. Page what? 23. So this is another item that was not in a bill that I brought to the subcommittee chair. It is to make the PSC website even more navigable than the great work they're already doing today, and help us use keyword search through their docket and mail log system, as well as some.
22.
22, I'm sorry, delegates. 22. It will, it's intent language to have them make the website sort of more searchable and also do some sort of almost like dashboard visualizations of some of the major proceedings, so it's a little bit easier for human beings who are interested to track. All the information's on the PSC website today. They're very transparent, but it can be difficult to find for a layperson. Some could say it'd be difficult to find for the Energy Council of the committee. And so we want to make it work just a little bit better. And I worked very closely with Chair Barve and the commission. So I'm looking for nods to make sure we're all good now. Okay, great. Then let us turn to page 31. Okay. Our regional transmission organization is called PJM. We've all learned to hate them, right? So our utilities, under a FERC policy, a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission policy, get an adder for being members of PJM. What I mean by that is they put into their rates more cost for ratepayers because they joined PJM.
Page 30 or 31, apologies.
31, that's my fault.
Beginning of where? Where is it?
The section does not apply to an electric cooperative, a person that owns or operates a transmission line. You see? So the state of Ohio figured this out, and they said, we are going to make our utilities join the RTO under law, and then they do not get the benefit of this adder that FERC allows because we are making them do it. And so Ohio has done that. There was litigation, and they have succeeded. The utilities in Ohio do not get the adder because they are required to join the RTOs under state law. And so we are replicating that policy. This was in the governor's bill, and that will mean less cost in your rates. Okay. Delegate Grammer.
Just so we understand, who does this impact? What entities would this impact?
The electric utilities will not be able to put an adder in their rates that you are paying today for the joy of joining PJM. They will just have to join PJM, and they will not be able to charge you for that honor.
Got it.
Okay. Let's go on to page 70. We had a bill from Delegate Charkoudian called the Affordable Solar Act. It had a lot of changes to SREC policy. None of that is in this bill before you. What else she also had in that bill was what's called portable solar. Some people call it balcony solar, and allowing that in the state of Maryland. And so that is what this language is. There are actually a number of bills on this topic. I think most other people withdrew their bills. This is actually a phenomenon like sweeping the country. 20-something states have adopted this. It started with Utah. And so that's what this section does. Questions on portable solar? Delegate Foley.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I don't have a question on portable solar, but I have going back to the PJM add-on or addition, whatever you called it. How much was that? Does it?
I believe it's some kind of 0.5% adder that they get to put in.
0.5%?
Yeah.
That's a lot. Thank you.
Total estimate is 20 million annually across the state.
20 million annually across the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I couldn't find a Pennsylvania precedent to cite to you. I had to go with Ohio.
It's okay. Ohio's close to Pittsburgh.
Delegate Holmes. Oh, you're just cheering Ohio? Yeah. Okay. Page 76. Okay, a couple of years ago, the General Assembly passed what was called SB1. It was reforms to the retail energy market. We have had many bills. Delegate Long had a bill, Delegate Grimmer had an amendment, Delegate Chisholm has a bill. We've had many bills trying to make changes to SB1. Some would say even repealing SB1. SB1 has a lot of value. There was a lot of chicanery and foul play going on, and people were being taken advantage of. Not everyone was being taken advantage of. But there were definitely people who were not being well treated by some of the retail energy providers. Not all the retail energy providers, but some. And so SB1 was a response to that, and an effort was made to try to reel that behavior in. But as many of you know, the effort to reel that behavior in had what I say is the unintended consequence of basically freezing that market up. And so there has been a great desire by many to unfreeze that market and have competitive generation choice come back. Now, I hear a lot on the floor about monopolies. We can't get rid of the monopoly of the utility, okay? So Pepco, in my case, owns the wires, right? So they will continue, they are a monopoly distributor no matter who I'm buying generation from. But it is true right now, I get my standard offer service through Pepco because there is no competitive option available. We have proposed some reforms here to try to unfreeze the market. So the bill SB1 set a price cap where the price of the electricity could not exceed the trailing 12-month average of the electric company's standard offer service. This is extremely challenging, especially in a time of high energy prices. I actually reached out to the Office of People's Counsel and said, well, what do you think would be a good way to do it? And their suggestion to me, they said they had proposed this a couple years ago, was standard offer service plus 25%. Well, that sounded pretty high. So we came up with a bit of compromise language of saying it would be standard offer service, 110% of standard offer service. So the permissible cap is standard offer service plus 10%. Another thing we heard was that limiting it to 1-year contracts was not flexible enough. And so this proposes up to 3-year contracts. Finally, variable rates were a challenge under the old program because rates were changing very quickly and people were not able to sort of track how much more they were paying. But we are aware of at least one provider that has a product where variable rates are used for good in that they only switch you between standard offer service or a rate cheaper than standard offer service. Well, that sounds pretty good to me. So we want to give that flexibility to allow that type of product where you would never pay more than standard offer service, but you could pay less. Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you that this will entirely unfreeze the retail energy market, but we heard from at least one provider that these are the changes the Maryland General Assembly needs to do to get them to come back into the market. That doesn't mean there's not other things the PSC might need to do or fights they might have with utilities. A lot of it's over billing and how the bill gets delivered and who gets the bill. But we heard from at least one provider that this is what we need the Maryland General Assembly to do, and so we are proposing to try it. Questions on retail energy? Okay. Page 116.
Section 7.
This is where we raise property taxes in Baltimore County to pay for the DC area metro system. At the bottom of page, well, I forgot the vice chair's from Baltimore County, I'm sorry. At the bottom of page 116, the governor proposed using $100 million from the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, or the SEIF, to pay for rebates, actually replicating a policy that was done last year. This redirects that in a different way. We're still using $100 million for ratepayer relief, but we're using it to pay the first $100 million of Empower. So instead of your Empower surcharge paying that $100 million, the thing that is on your bill, this $100 million will be paid for by the SEIF. So it's a different way of delivering rate relief by, for 1 year, having $100 million of the Empower program side come out of the SEIF. Questions on that? Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry I have so many questions. So for 1 year, what happens after that 1 year?
Well, similar to the rebates, it runs out. So, of course, we're here every year, so we can make another decision in the future. But yeah, this is a 1 year, the same way last year's rebates were 1 year. And the proposal from the governor was 1 year. Or one-time rebates, I should say. Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have a sense of what that, how ratepayers will experience that? It's not a rebate, what is it, that subsidy?
The surcharge for Empower that's on your electric bill
Yeah.
will be smaller
It'll be smaller.
than it otherwise would have been.
And that's a line on our bills? People will see that? Okay, thank you.
The Empower surcharge is on your bill, as members on the floor have been constantly reminding me.
I never look at my bill, and so this is a great opportunity to look at my bill. Thank you.
Just like to say, last year, $100 million
It's too painful to look at.
Last year, $100 million was estimated to be about a $40 impact overall. Like if you push $100 million, that's the amount of savings. The timing will depend on how, like over how many months, but that's about how much you get for the year, for the $100 million.
Delegate Jacobs.
Mr. Chairman. In the beginning, we talked about how the Empower was going to go down for 3 years and then go back up. And now we're talking about the $100 million that's going to pay 1 year. How does that affect that as it goes down?
So the 100 million just helps them reach the goal, whatever it is. And instead of passing that cost on to us to reach that goal, they're taking it from that $100 million.
So that's kind of separate from the DOG?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Another way to look at it is it will push the Empower surcharge down even further than reducing the goal in 2027.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
We can go back to page, sorry, are there more questions about that? Okay, we can go back to page 1. So page 1 through 12 takes a bill from Delegate Fraser Hidalgo that came from a study by the Department of Legislative Services. They have that Office of Program and Government Efficiency, Program Accountability and Government Efficiency, OPAGA, something like that. They had a recommendation about consolidating the energy programs under OHEP. And so Delegate Fraser Hidalgo had a bill to do that. And so this executes that measure. I think the thought is that over time, that could have some administrative savings type benefits, though I don't think the fiscal note actually calculated anything. So it just consolidates the programs under OHEP. Questions on that? Doesn't change eligibility or anything like that at this time. Okay. Page 88. Okay, so Delegate Stein had a great bill about using funds in the CEF. The bill as it came in was a good bill. It did have some issues. For example, it used dollar amounts. We don't always know what's going to be in the CEF. It also was inadvertently written in such a way that that stuff would come before energy assistance. So if you think about the CEF, there are two major components. There are alternative compliance payments, which we'll talk more about later. That's what the utilities pay instead of actually getting renewables. And then there's auction revenue from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative Cap and Trade Program. And I know we'll talk about RGGI more later because one of our colleagues has an amendment on that topic. A lot of that RGGI money currently goes to low-income energy assistance, and of course it's very important that we preserve that. We need those assistance programs no matter what is happening with the energy markets, right? Whether it's high or low to you and I, it's always high to the low-income folks, and so we want to make sure we're protecting that. So we worked with Delegate Stein, we worked with some of the advocates for that bill to basically focus on a portion of the CEF that it was already designated a quote-unquote clean energy development and put things in these specific buckets about where we wanted that funding to go. In addition, we are making a broader change that we'll talk about to something called the DRIVE Act. That was a bill of Delegate Fraser Hidalgo's that we're going to help pay for out of the CEF, help pay for kind of virtual power plant storage devices. And of course, our PPRP reviews all the CPCNs. So PPRP is the Power Plant Research Program. It's actually within the Department of Natural Resources, so a department this committee has been long familiar with, an agency, maybe a unit maybe we're now just becoming familiar with. It's in DNR. We have been asking a lot of them. We're asking even more of them in this bill, and so we want to use the CEF to fund them on a sustainable basis. The governor actually proposed some money this year out of the CEF for them. We want to do that on an ongoing basis, at least for a few years as they're wrapping as they're working to get more generation approved, right? I mean, we need generation. I've been hearing that constantly. Well, to get generation in the state of Maryland, you need a CPCN. And so we need the Power Plant Research Program to be able to go quickly on those CPCNs so we can get more generation in the ground. So that is what these provisions do. Are there questions on these provisions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Boyce.
Number 5.
Number 5 is the PPRP change that I was just describing, yes. Did you want to add something, Steve?
I could just explain it in English if you'd like.
Let's get Delegate Lewis's question first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at page 89, Roman numeral 2, sub 2, I guess. It refers to, beginning of fiscal year 2028, at least 20% shall be credited to a renewable clean energy programs account, allocated 30% for transportation-related emissions reduction programs. I'm partly being facetious here, but I don't see e-bikes listed. Are they defined as electric vehicles? Are they considered under the electric vehicle?
Well, so the category is not electric vehicles, it's transportation-related emissions reduction programs.
Including
So-
electric vehicle charging infrastructure?
Yes,
electric school
including,
bus?
but not limited to. So it is possible that if there was an actual plan to use them to reduce emissions, that it could technically qualify. That is not what the folks I talked about this language had in mind, but that doesn't mean it would not be possible.
Thank you.
And I thought I was speaking English, but Steve, if you want to give another try at the PPRP.
Okay, so number 5 down here, what this is basically saying is if PPRP surcharge right now is, I just keep confusing myself, I'm very sorry. Okay, if the surcharge is its current amount, okay, that's what that language is saying there, less than 0.15 mil per kilowatt, that's their current surcharge, that's their current funding mechanism. It generates roughly $8 million per year across everybody's bill. It's about a quarter on your bill. It's probably a quarter on your bill. If that doesn't change, and that's not enough for PPRP, if that doesn't change, then CEF will step in and fund 5% from this account, which is roughly $5 to $6 million based on this year's allowance as introduced. I haven't seen the changes, but basically, if that surcharge doesn't change, then CEF will pay some.
And the way this is currently paid for, and Steve mentioned this, is a line item on your bill. I think it's called environmental trust. Trust fund, yeah. So it's a line on your bill. Instead of that line getting bigger to fund PPRP, we are not touching that line and we're funding it more from the CEF. Delegate Boyce.
I think it falls under number 1, 45% building clean. Would these include things like induction stoves?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And heat pumps and lots of other good stuff. Delegate Foley?
Back to number 2 that Delegate Lewis asked about, does that include public transit systems, like WMATA?
I mean, again, I think it is written in such a way, which, again, worked with advocates on, that I guess technically you could say that it's for that, but I don't think that is anybody's intent, so I'll just say it right here in case it's helpful. It is not my intent that this go to fund operating or capital costs for public transit systems.
Okay.
I think the idea of this is we need more charging stations, right, for electric vehicles.
Right, okay.
They want, we have a school bus transition. It's not
Right.
going as fast as we want, but it's going to continue to happen. We want to be able to help the local school systems with that. I think that's
Okay, so that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember Delegate Stein's bill, and under, I guess there was no, in this bill, there's no authorization for CEF to be used for electrification transportation. If we're going to use these percentages, are they going to be able to use electrification in this bill under the CEF?
I'm not sure I totally followed the question, but we worked with Delegate Stein and the advocates to narrow the buckets.
Right.
Because there were many great things, at least great from my perspective, things listed in Delegate Stein's bill. But because we were dealing with a smaller pot, we wanted to be a little bit more focused. And so we worked with them to come up with that focus. So I'm not quite sure the answer to your specific question, but that's where this language came
I'll
from.
think about it and get back to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Delegate Lewis.
Second bite at the apple, Mr. Chair. Remember the zero emission bus program? That's a public transit initiative designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And electric bus, these will be MTA buses or local lots buses. They need electric charging infrastructure. So they would be included under this 30% transportation-related reduction programs, right? Not just electric school buses, but also MTA buses.
Right. So I think the answer is it depends. So I think it is a question whether we want to use the CEF money to pay for the Maryland Transit Administration or WMATA. You could do that, I guess. I mean, cap and trade is used in Washington State and California for transit. I do not think that was the purpose of this section as written. I think they were thinking more of helping the school systems, getting more EV chargers out there. I think that's what the idea was.
Okay, so for schools and residential users or household users?
You could also.
Commercial.
I mean, you might also want to incentivize charging at a commercial location, at a business location. I think Delegate Ebersol charges at like a Walmart or a Target near his house, so.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on these provisions? Okay.
This goes hand in hand with page 91.
You want me to go out of order?
I just didn't mention it to you on the previous number. It's page 91, this is the sweeper.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. There's also a sweeper. So oftentimes the Reggie projections are, off. And so if there's extra money that comes back in as a result of that auction year, it gets swept into the programs that we were just describing. So it's a little bit more money for them potentially, although it leaves some sort of reserve amounts. So we don't get down to zero, but the amount over the reserve amount would get swept into the programs and be used and deployed. Okay. Page 91. Page 91 authorizes $100 million a year for 2 years from the ACP side of the CEF to incentivize generation, essentially. So we're going to do a 2-year program, $100 million a year. And the program is described in more detail on page 90, starting on page 99.
Nope, sorry, 92.
92. Yep. Okay. 91 through 99. And this is a concept that the Senate has in a bill called a reverse auction. And that is the methodology for getting the dollars out the door quickly to build the most solar for the least cost. There are various provisions in here to ensure performance, like bonds and things like that they have to do. But this is a way of using the ACPs to deploy more renewable generation. Because ideally, we would have no ACPs, right? Alternative compliance payments are bad. We don't want them. We want the utilities getting the renewables that we set the targets for. And right now, they're on tier 1, mostly just doing ACPs. And so this redeploys that money to create more renewable generation so that hopefully over time, the ACPs will continue to decline. We're trying it for 2 years under this bill, see how this method works. There were alternative methods offered. The governor had a bill with grants. Someone who worked for the speaker had a great idea for no interest loans. There's lots of different ways to do this, but this was an idea that was put forth in a Senate bill, and so this is what we are proposing in this reverse auction methodology. Delegate Boyce.
Goes through 99, right? I'm sorry, that goes through page 99?
Yes. Delegate Ziegler.
I don't actually know what a reverse auction is, but it may not matter, or I could find out later, but is it?
It's like an auction, but it goes the other way. So instead of the price going up, the price goes down. And yeah, they're bidding to be cheaper, and so you get the cheapest cost for the most solar by doing it as a reverse auction as opposed to.
Oh, okay, I got you, thank you.
Other questions on that? Other questions you want to ask right now about that? I'll put it that way. Okay, then we will turn to page 30. There is a lot of interest in data centers, many bills on data centers, and of course we all voted to override in December a study that the governor vetoed, or we voted to override the veto of a bill the governor vetoed, which was a data center study. We're supposed to get that back at the end of the year. So we want to be a little careful in what we do before we have the benefit of that study, and well, lots of other things are swirling around. So this does not require data centers to do anything, except we are sort of giving our intent that they use in-state workers in construction for construction ongoing expenses, that they have behind-the-meter storage, that they have purchased their capacity with newly interconnected energy storage facilities, that they have carbon-free assets, they do a demand response, sometimes called a curtailment program, that they work with the communities, and that they have a plan for these things. This is really just intent. It's actually similar to what the governor announced in the State of the State, where he said, this is what a data center has to do to earn my support. So we're kind of making a similar statement here, that these are things we value. So data centers, be aware, be on the lookout. This is the kind of thing that we're looking for. Questions? Delegate Lewis. Thank you, Delegate Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is more sort of statement of principles, and it leaves us flexibility to make new decisions when the data center study bill is available, December 2026. So we'll come back in next session. And in the meantime, will this sort of statement of principles have any impact on the rate, the number, the geographic citing, or anything to do with what happens with data centers in our state?
I think the hope, and it's just a hope, Delegate, is that this will encourage data centers that are coming to look at some of these things and say, oh, well, this, the General Assembly is interested in this stuff, and the governor said the same thing, and so, we want to do business with them, and so we're going to talk about these things, but it does not require them to do it.
It doesn't impose any delays, it doesn't change permitting, it really...
It was, as you said, a statement of principles.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the requirement that they hire to the maximum extent possible in-state workers for construction ongoing operations, is there an assumption there, or does it need to be specifically stated that they're going to follow prevailing wage and all the other, project labor agreements and all that stuff?
So I will say that we took these provisions in large part from a bill from Delegate Charkoudian. So I'm not sure how she dealt with PLAs or prevailing wage there.
Okay.
The good news is, since this is sort of guidance, we can revisit and make sure that your concerns are addressed in the future if we actually impose something.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Market signals.
Market signals, I like that term. Thank you, Chair Fraser-Lago.
It's kind of what we think we can expect.
Other questions? He was just saying it's market signals. It's signals to the market.
I see.
Sorry, Delegate Grammer.
I'm sorry, and maybe I missed that. I had to go to the bathroom. This was a pretty important part of the broader issue. Can you explain to me, I kind of expected more of a strict measure when it came to data centers and what they would be expected to do going forward.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for the study that's coming out at the end of this year that we all, maybe you didn't vote to override it, I don't know, but many of us voted to override the governor's veto of, and so we want the benefit of that study before we make sort of locked in, hard policy decisions. So I also say, I'll just be totally honest with you, Delegate, views are pretty divided on data centers, and I don't think it's divided by party. I think even within our parties, there's a lot of division, and so, finding the right kind of needle to thread is a challenge. Okay, page 72. Senator Hester has a bill on a data center registry so that we know where these things are and where they're going and what's being proposed and some of the potential impacts will be. And this is a requirement that they participate in this registry if they're coming to Maryland and meet certain sizing requirements. Starts on page 72. Questions on these provisions? Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't read all of these, but does this address the issue of phantom forecasting for phantom data centers?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a challenge because we can't ask them to register too early because they just won't do it. But there's a little like a competitiveness problem, right? But I think what's happening, this is my own kind of view, is that a lot of these data center developers are looking at multiple locations at the same time, right? And so that is part of what's creating the phantom load problem. And I don't think we have the ability to have them come in early enough that we can entirely mitigate that. But we are having them come in when they go to PJM. And so at that moment, at least for purposes of PJM, that's when we'll be able to see like what's being proposed. And, maybe someone who really dives in the data will be able to figure out that, oh, this is duplicate. I mean, that could be something OPC might, have the capability to do. But I think this is more about public transparency in my mind than it is the phantom load problem. But as Chair Fraser-Duggal was whispering, it would potentially help with the phantom load challenge.
Yeah, I think it would be good to look at some of the other states.
Chair Fraser-Duggal.
Yeah, I think that there's, there's some interest in trying to coordinate with other states as well, so that within the PJM, so that we can get a better handle on that and avoid some of those speculative load costs in the capacity market auction.
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate all of the attention to the data center issues, transparency, and planning and market signals. With regard to this data center registry provision, I just want to, sort of clarify for myself, this registry becomes effective, or the commission, what commission is that? Oh, those guys, yeah. The PSC shall set up by January 1st, 2027, the registry. What happens to data centers that start between now and January?
Well, I think, Steve, correct me, but I think they would still have to come in once the registry's set up, right? It would capture things that are currently, it's not just forward-looking in that sense, right, Steve?
Looking right here at the legal requirement begins when
73.
when it's effective July 1. Sorry, it's very hot in here. July 1 for new or expanded interconnection. July 1, 27. Sorry, 26. Effective date of this provision. So I think that is when the ongoing teeth would begin to apply, and PSC has to develop the registry, give them a little extra time to actually do it. But I think that's when the requirement to register will start for those data centers.
Shall apply, where's the date? I don't see the date.
The effective date of this provision is this July 1. So C2I. So there are two pieces of this. The law itself, the whole thing, will become effective July 1, 2026. At that point, there are new or expanded interconnections of large load customers occurring in the state that this would apply to, but PSC needs time to develop something like this. So there's a delay on the registration process, but I think the requirement to register will apply beginning with the effective date of the law. That's my read as I'm looking now.
Delegate Jacobs.
Up on DFH's comments on the registry, this won't be just in Maryland. You're trying to capture the grid, right? On the registry.
Yeah, this is just Maryland. So of course, PJM captures the grid more broadly, but for us, it's just Maryland.
So we won't know if there's a phantom outside of Maryland.
Right, but again, I understand the phantom load issue, but to me, for whatever this is worth, this is more about transparency to our citizens so they can see what's being proposed and where, as opposed to trying to get the phantom load
But I know
issue.
in some of the testimony and legislation, they talked about that they were going to different states even trying to, register a data center.
Yep.
And so that affected the whole grid, but what we're focused on is just Maryland.
Yes, in this
Thank you.
provisions. Yep. And I should add, we were talking about data centers, and of course, we have this registry, and we have the statement of principles. I also want to credit the work last year where they initiated the large load tariff that will put additional rule. I think that's still under development, the PSC, that will, put additional rules and teeth on the, on data centers. Vice Chair Guyton.
Just to that and to Delegate Grammer's point earlier, I think the phantom load concerns, particularly in the PJM region, are addressed in this report at, let's see, 1. Page 73, number 1. So they want to know whether they are also pursuing other requests in other states in the PJM region. So I think that gets to your question. And to Delegate Grammers also, even though this doesn't dictate that they have to do certain things at this point, because we're not ready to do it. I hope it's okay to sit. It does collect a whole lot of information about where their energy is going to come from, what water they're going to use, all these things that we can then eventually, once the study comes back, utilize to make decisions if we want to do that. So I just wanted
Chair
to.
Fraser-Dago.
Thank you, and I believe it's Senator Hester and others, I think maybe Delegate Charkoudian as well, to your point, Delegate Jacobs, are trying to coordinate with other states within the PJM, trying to, loosely trying to get the other states to do something similar so that we can all kind of aggregate that data.
Terrific. Okay, we will turn to page 12. 12. So Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo had a bill presented us the other day about rooftop residential solar and the permitting for that and the inspections for that. He did a lot of work because there were some concerns raised to alter his proposal, and we put it in here. What it does is it requires the locals to adopt a software tool for the permit process. There's a free tool available from the U.S. Department of Energy, but they can use whatever they want as long as it meets certain requirements. And then there was a lot of discussion of remote inspections. Instead of just forcing remote inspections, which some safety concerns were raised about, Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo came up with a elegant idea of allowing remote inspections if jurisdictions want to do them, that's up to them. But then starting to measure how long they're taking to do the inspections. And so beginning in July 1st of 2028, if a county or municipality has had an average in-person inspection time that is greater than 5 business days, based on the immediately preceding 12-month period, they need to then make available remote inspection. So if locals don't want to do remote inspections, that's fine. We just expect them to get the inspections done in a timely fashion. So that is the solution that Chair Fraser-Hidalgo came up with. Chair Fraser-Hidalgo, am I missing anything else about your provisions?
No, that's the gist of it. The reason for this is to just try to get the process to move in a more timely manner. Time is money. There are a lot of jurisdictions and a lot of countries around the world that are deploying similar size projects for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. Thank you.
There are a couple other related provisions. One, we're requiring the electric companies other than municipal electric utility to do meter changes that are requested within 5 business days. And in addition, and this was of course in the original bill as well, it gives the Attorney General the enforcement power to make sure counties and municipalities are doing what we need them to do. Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What's the typical turnaround time for a utility to connect?
Go ahead. Chair Fraser-Hidalgo.
And that's what we're specifying in the bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and yep, okay. Other questions on this provision? Okay, page 77. This relates to another Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo bill. A few years ago, we had something called the Drive Act. It essentially set up a PSC proceeding on time of use and kind of virtual power plants. This is the idea that if you have a storage device in your house that's charged all day and you don't need that power and the grid has a need for it, the grid could voluntarily, you'd be voluntarily participating in this, the grid could tap into it. And these virtual power plants actually exist. There's at least one pilot in Maryland that the PSC has been overseeing. And so this is a model that exists in the world, and Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo had a bill to supercharge that program. There was a little challenge with Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo's excellent policy idea, which is the utilities were going to basically be subsidizing the storage devices with ratepayer funds. And I just want to give Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo credit that he saw that as a problem right now, and we don't want the Drive Act driving up bills further. I didn't mean to do that, but the Drive Act driving up bills further. And so I mentioned earlier using some money from the CEF, it was for this. So instead of it being rate-based and on your rates, the program would still exist. You could still have virtual power plants and time of use and everything. We would still be doing that, but the storage devices themselves would not be paid for by ratepayers. We would be doing it from a small program out of the SEEF. Delegate Chair Fraser-Hidalgo, is there anything you want to add?
No, I mean, Mr. Chairman, you did a great job. Essentially distributed solar, distributed storage, and, being able to call on those electrons is really important, and this gets at that from a perspective of kind of spreading it out all over the state. But unfortunately, when we passed the bill 2 or 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we were in one place, and now with energy prices where they are, we are in another place, and we had to make some changes. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to turn to page 82. So we heard from the Department of General Services, which procures many things for the state, including energy, that there were some things they are required to include in contracts that were very challenging for like a renewable power purchase agreement. And so they asked if they have the ability to go to the Board of Public Works to have those provisions waived. So we're not just saying you don't have to do the provisions. We're saying you can go to the Board of Public Works and get those provisions of the contract waived to allow you to do the types of agreements that you're hoping to do. So that is what these provisions are. Delegate Boyce. It starts on the bottom of page 82. Yeah, and it rolls on through page 86.
Thank you.
There are additional changes throughout the bill that I mentioned before, striking overhead from before transmission. And again, that goes back to the bill from Delegate Embry. Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask now about the 2 amendments that I just described? The procurement waivers? Yes, so we heard from the Department of General Services, which procures things for the state like power, that they were having trouble getting some of the types of agreements they were hoping with renewable energy providers because of some provisions they are required to include in contracts. So what we are saying is we're not going to say you don't have to include them, but we're going to let you go to the Board of Public Works to get a waiver from those provisions. So they'll have to sort of show their work to the Board of Public Works like they do with other contracts to basically explain, why they want to be able to do this without these provisions. Okay. Any other questions on the amendments from the subcommittee? I'm going to move the subcommittee amendments.
So moved.
Okay, discussion on subcommittee amendments. Vice Chair Guyton.
I'm sorry.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say this is a very massive project, and I just want to say I want to thank, of course, all the people you thank, but I also want to thank Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo for his leadership, but I also want to thank you for your leadership on this. I think this is amazing work and really appreciate everything that you put in on behalf of Maryland ratepayers and the people of the state. Thank you.
It's very kind of you, Delegate Foley. Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know the hour is late, and I don't want to belabor the moment, but I wanted to thank you as well, too, and to Steve, who's probably drove himself crazy with all the energy. This is going to bring about real relief to ratepayers and hopefully very soon. So thank you again.
All right, I apologize. There are a couple more things. I just want to make clear, and I think we did this, but we just want to make clear because we're going to have to do it through kind of a technical amendment, that the community solar and solar generating facilities piece that we're counting towards in the Empower goal, that is being proposed to count for 3 years, right? And so after that 3 years, that will go away and that will no longer be counted. So that's just for the 1 3-year cycle. Again, we're removing overhead throughout. That's just for consistency. We are going to probably have to make some other technical corrections to the bill just as the drafters go through it and figure out what I's and weren't dotted and T's weren't crossed. These will not be substantive provisions, but we might need to make some technical changes to make sure that things like the cross references are right. And then We have a new short title for the bill. It is called the Utility Reducing Energy Load Inflation for Everyday Families Act. And that is the Utility Relief Act. The most important thing we'll do tonight, talk about the title. So I would like to group that in with the committee amendments which have been moved and seconded. Utility Relief Act. And the not short version of it is the Utility Reducing Energy Load Inflation for Everyday Families Act.
It's URA.
Okay, so any further discussion on the amendments? Does anyone else want to thank me?
Thank you, sir.
Just kidding, guys. All right, am I able to do this as a voice vote, or do you guys need a recorded vote on the amendments? Recorded? Okay. Okay, let's do a roll call vote for the record here on the amendments. Vice Chair Guyton.
Yes.
Delegate, Chair Fraser-Hidalgo.
Yes.
Chair Lewis. Yeah, Chair Lewis, yeah. Yes, okay. Delegate Jacobs. Aye. Delegate Holmes. Aye. Delegate Healy.
Aye.
Delegate Long.
Aye.
Delegate Baker.
Yes.
Delegate Allen.
Aye.
Delegate Grammer. Delegate Odom.
Aye.
Delegate Anderson.
Yes.
Delegate Baylor.
Yes.
Delegate Morgan.
Aye.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
Delegate Foley.
Yes.
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Stein.
Yes.
Okay, so the amendments carry. Are there additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer first 253220, and I'll keep these brief. I know time's late. So I wanted to pick a couple things that could really get at the affordability issue. And the Public Services Commission is currently promulgating a rule and considering that which would ban new connections for natural gas. And what this would do is prohibit that to ensure that we could continue to offer new gas connections to consumers. Throughout the session, we've heard we want an all-of-the-above approach. I think it's not likely to help affordability if we cut gas out of the equation. With that, I'd move the amendment. Ask for a second.
Is there a second? Okay, there's no second, Delegate Grammer.
Understood.
Are there further amendments? Yes, Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, sir. 653128, this would add nuclear to the list of Tier 1 clean renewable energy. And in trying to think about generation down the road, the challenge of nuclear is that it's such a big capital investment that they're looking for some sort of stability and reliability that would make their project, make the initial investment feasible and provide some sort of stability. And I think adding them to the list of Tier 1 energy suppliers would do that. I think we probably should have done this a long time ago, and if we had done that, we would likely not be in this situation. So I think this is a simple change we could make to really get at additional clean energy generation in the state. And with that, I'd move the amendment.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second that since we already introduced that bill earlier in the session. Thank you.
Any discussion on the proposed amendment? Chair Fraser-Hidalgo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say thank you very much for getting us the amendments. It's always great to have a chance to look through them. So I would ask the committee to resist this amendment, and the reason why is that last year we passed the Next Gen Act, and we recognized that we wanted to incentivize and make sure nuclear was a part of the conversation and an active part of the conversation. So last year we created something called ZECs, which are zero emission credits, and these are credits specifically designed, Delegate Grammer, to address exactly what you want to do. There are other states around the country that have adopted them as well, and they've had great success with them, and I think that those are targeted specifically to this industry. If we went the other direction, we would be going to recs that weren't designed for this. So we already have it. I don't think that it's needed because we already have it in the ZEC market. And as a matter of fact, there's a very small amendment of some clarifying language in the bill that we just went through. So again, I would ask, there's no need for it. We pretty much already have it, and I'm happy to talk with you offline about it.
Yeah,
Further discussion, Delegate Grammer.
Yeah, I'd love to have that discussion, but it's one of the things I made sure to have a discussion with the nuclear folks this year. And it's my feeling that they don't see that as a solution that's going to allow them to move forward. So I think this is a simple amendment. I understand everyone might not be for it, but I think it'd be very positive for affordability for the folks of our state.
All right, on the amendment, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Stein. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. In addition to the arguments that Delegate Frazier-Hidalgo made, I'd also say, as a reason to oppose this, not sure if the amendment would include existing nuclear, but if it did, it would just swamp the RPS. I mean, nuclear is about, what, a third of our in-state electric generation, and that would basically almost eliminate incentives for other forms of renewable energy. So I'd recommend a no. Thank you.
Chair Frazier-Hidalgo.
Thank you. Also, I think it's important to realize that there are significant energy assistance programs for like Calvert Cliffs already that are existing from the feds. So there is some significant help in that department already. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendments? All right, the amendment fails. Are there additional amendments, Delegate Grammer?
Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chair. I have one more, 313422. And that's it. That's it, unfortunately, for the night. So probably the biggest complaint I've heard of energy costs in talking with a lot of people this session are the impacts of the regional greenhouse gas initiative. And the way it adds carbon costs to the bidding, drives up the highest cost plants to impact the market price. And really, I think it's just really bad policy across the board. And I think it's one of the main drivers of our energy cost in the state. I think it's why you see regionally, Delaware, Virginia are complaining about it. Pennsylvania, as I understand, they've opted out of the regional greenhouse gas initiative. And I think if we want to make an immediate impact to drive down energy costs, this is probably the biggest action we could take. So with that, I'd move the amendment.
Is there a second? Okay, there's no second, Delegate Grammer. So I would like to move the bill as amended. Any discussion? Delegate Grammer.
Yes. So I wanted to take one last moment here to kind of get your thoughts on where the beef was on this bill. I do think there are some positive things here, but it's as far as the affordability question and driving down what people pay on their bill, either in distribution or generation. I'm looking around the bill and I don't see the big meat that I'm hoping to see to drive down rates. So if we could just talk about, in the principle of the bill, where do we see the cost savings here?
Great question, Delegate Grammer. So first of all, we have to acknowledge that we're part of a regional and national problem. It's not just us, right? It's not just Maryland. A lot of times I hear on the floor that something is a Maryland problem, but if you actually look out a little bit, it's much broader than that. And so there are things that were just not in our control. Everything's in the speaker's control, but as for the rest of us, not everything is within our control, right? This bill tries to get at short-term, medium, and long-term issues. And I think what you're asking about is the short term. And in the short term, this will reduce electric bills because of the changes to Empower. Frankly, those changes are very difficult for people on my side of the aisle to do. But we think it's important to meet the moment where people need some relief on their utility bills. And that is the biggest short-term change. There are other provisions that will also definitely have an effect on bills of varying sizes. For example, HB1, right? We've been through this debate before. As you know, that will have a reduction on rates over time. Same with the regional transmission organization kicker that we're basically getting rid of. That will have an effect over time. We're also dealing with the potential for future rate increases that we are preventing here. Again, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo took a very good bill that he passed a few years ago, and he said, this is not the time to put this on ratepayers. We can't let that happen, and so he made a change to that program. We are looking at net energy metering in a very different way to make sure that the subsidy that people are paying out of their rates to encourage solar, which is important, is not quite as high as it is today, and doesn't and will hopefully be changed in the future based on the proceeding of the Public Service Commission. So there are a number of things in here that deal with short, medium, and long term. I understand that we're probably not going to philosophically agree on everything in this bill, but this bill does have the effect of lowering rates. The bills people see, particularly the Empower surcharge, will be less because of the work this committee is doing tonight. Other discussion on the bill? Delegate Morgan.
Discuss it. Is that now or later?
Now.
Okay. First, this has been an enlightening 10 weeks to learn about energy along the way. And I want to thank Dr. Fraser Hidalgo for all his work, because we know we spent a lot of hours and late nights pushing these bills through. No bill is perfect, but I do remain tremendously concerned with the amount of power we've taken out of the system and we're trying to find a way to replace. I think everybody in the committee knows I'm not exactly the most green fan out here. Not exactly the worst one, but not exactly the best one either. But I am very concerned with the dependence on renewables and solar from the farming point of view, the ability to generate enough electricity as an intermittent power source. So I'll be voting no against this bill. It has good parts, as you well say, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I don't think it gives the ratepayers the relief that they're asking us to give them at this time. And obviously, there's not going to be any way to get a fiscal note around this thing, I don't think, unless there are some algorithms I've never seen before. But that's my 2 cents, and thank you very much.
Yeah, I will just say on the fiscal note, every once in a while we get this question on the floor about what's the fiscal note say. It's an amended bill, so it will get a third reader fiscal note, but it will be after we vote it out of the House, and that's how every bill works. So yes, I can't give you a fiscal note. And thank you for your thoughtful comments, Delegate Morgan. Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I just want to thank Delegate Baylor for all his work on this bill. He worked very hard as well, and the entire Energy Subcommittee, and of course, Chair Fraser Hidalgo and your own leadership. I'm excited and proud to support this bill for a number of reasons. All the reasons you already said, Mr. Chair. Number one, it's going to have a pretty immediate and pretty significant effect on the average ratepayer, on all ratepayers, which I think is something that we've heard about pretty much nonstop for the last year or so. In addition, I also think, and I don't think this has been mentioned by anybody yet, just kind of in this discussion phase, but I think what this does, the steps it takes towards data center management, let's call it, that's a problem that I don't even know if I call it a problem. It is no, it's a problem. It's a problem that we need to solve. It's a problem that we and the other states in the region need to solve. This bill goes a long way towards putting us in line with our partners and our neighbors in Virginia and Pennsylvania. It's going to set expectations for the entire industry, which is frankly a new industry to this region. And I think it's going to have significant effects in the short, medium, and long term for the energy industry in Maryland. And I really appreciate everyone's indulgence.
Thank you, Delegate Allen. Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, and I do think there are some good things in this bill. I like the changes to net metering, the changes to nuclear. I do think this it likely helps with the PJM forecasting problem. But I'm going to be a no because the big, giant issues contributing to, frankly, the lack of an energy market, I don't think we've tackled. We've talked inordinately about data centers, and if they do tend to grow as anticipated. I just want to note the bill suggests things but does not require very much of what we've alluded to be a huge drain on our energy supply. We continue to have things like the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which are very deleterious to ratepayers in the state. And we continue to march down this road of cutting generation from our capacity and cutting options for consumers. So I do think there are some good things in the bill that will make some small positive changes for ratepayers, but not what the ratepayers in District 6 are looking for. So I'll be a no today.
Thank you, Delegate Grammer. Delegate Anderson.
I want to thank everybody on the committee because there was a lot of hours put in trying to get this right. And the only shortfall that I feel we made is we don't have a strategy for the future. We're approaching everything for the here and now, but I don't know that this bill gives us a vision for how we continue to grow in the state, and that's the only place I thought it fell short. But thank everybody. It was an educational experience that I'll have stories about the rest of my life.
Thank you, Delegate Anderson. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly will be a strong yes on this bill. There are things in the bill that I'm not crazy about also. But I do think that it is, I don't think it's correct to say, I think it does address issues that ratepayers have for sure, and I think it will make a big impact, as you said, in the short term, in the medium term, and in the long term. But I also think that it's wrong to say that we should just, that it has to be a choice between ratepayers and reducing greenhouse gases. I don't think that's the choice here. I think our constituents also want us to continue to address climate change. And, maybe we have to make adjustments here or there, but I think our goals are still to reduce greenhouse gases. We should still stay on that path. I think this bill threads the needle on that in a lot of ways, and I think it's a really good bill. I also think that in terms of, this whole process, this is never a one-off. Last year there was the Next Gen bill that we passed that was also a behemoth bill, not quite as big as this one. But that's true on any issue that comes to the General Assembly. We try to deal with what we're faced with today, and then when we come back for our next 90-day session, we can change things. We can deal with other things. We can tweak this. So I think this is more than a great start. I think it's a great place to be, and I intend to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to pick up on something you said, which is a great point. I do want to give a lot of credit to the Economic Matters Committee last year. They did pass 3 very large energy bills, including the Next Generation Energy Act that we've talked a lot about tonight. And so we are building on others' work. We're not starting with a blank piece of paper. And so I do want to give them credit. And I want to acknowledge Delegate Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to also echo some of the efforts that have taken place. As the longest serving member on this committee, what has taken place here in this particular bill certainly shows the efforts that has taken place within this committee, and as you indicated, piggyback on some of the ECM efforts that took place previously. And I really want to appreciate you and staff and DFH for going through this particular process, because it really shows the commitment. And although nothing is perfect, I think it shows the citizens that we do understand their needs, and we are attempting to take care of some of the issues that they are worried about. So again, I just want to thank all of you for what you've done, because it really shows that you really understand and you're trying to take care of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Fraser-Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to start out by just thanking the committee. This is the subject matter of energy is massive, and this committee and the subcommittee took on kind of a confluence of a perfect storm of issues. We have capacity markets, we have capacity auctions, we have a lot of issues when it comes to global tariffs, when it comes to wars, when it comes to offshore wind, when it comes to data centers. And so it's kind of a perfect storm that's all happened at the same time. And then we have the subject matter here. And everybody here has been so curious so engaged. I will tell you how it warmed my heart when we had our hearings. And out of everybody here, I think at one point, out of 20 people here, we had 19 hands up, all with really good questions. So, so I want to thank everybody for that, Steve, and all the writers, and all the council that's been working around the clock. And I also want to say, look, we control what we can control. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that you do what you can do. And so I think that we all recognize that the data center issue is a regional, it is a worldwide, regional, and countrywide problem. This is not just about Maryland. This is about speculation and data centers. So what we did is we went after the things that we could. And when it came to the data center pieces, we went after as much of that as we could as well. So I think it's really important to realize when we talk about how much we did a lot. We really did a lot with what the things that were within our control. So again, I want to thank everybody for all your work, and I'm just very proud to vote for this bill. I hope everybody else is as well. While it might not be perfect, which is what people said, it is a really good bill, and we have other years to make other adjustments as we can. Thank you.
Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and want to echo what others have said, and thanking you and Delegate Fraser Hidalgo for your leadership on this. It is a very, very comprehensive bill addressing many of the challenges that we're facing with respect to power, and has a lot of good things there. As others have said, there are some things that maybe I would have adjusted if it was just if it was just up to me, but overall we make a lot of progress. And also I want to thank you and Utility Subcommittee Chair for including many other bill ideas. We had obviously tons of energy bills, and this reflects the work product reflects integration of some of the best ideas across many different bills. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Delegate Stein. Okay, let me join Chair Fraser Hidalgo in thanking each of the committee members. I know many of you had bill ideas, amendment ideas, questions that were asked, really great thoughts on all of these topics. And I know not every one of them got in to this bill, and that's of course part of the legislative process. I'll also note that the work's not done. I'm very optimistic that it'll pass the House next week, but of course there's a whole nother chamber and a whole nother branch that we're still in ongoing discussions with. So stay tuned on that, but just really appreciate everyone's engagement. And I will say that yes, this year the Speaker had an energy bill, and it's the top issue probably of the legislative session, but that won't be every year. There'll be a lot of other years where this committee will have 30, 35 different energy bills from each of you. And I'm hoping that for those of you who didn't walk in with the subject matter expertise, that you've now developed the subject matter expertise, so that those can be really good bills for the state of Maryland across a range of utilities and energy topics. So I'm hoping that, yes, that's not a vision for the future of all energy in the state of Maryland, Delegate Anderson, but maybe a little vision for the committee in the future is that, it won't always work this way where there's one big, mega bill. There'll be a process with lots of bills, and, you all will sponsor great legislation, and Chair Fraser Hidalgo will vote them out of subcommittee, and we'll go from there. I also just want to thank the staff one more time, including Steve, the council, Dwayne, everybody else, Trish, Mana, Rose, Dom, Kristen, who's just hanging out here to have a good time tonight, I think. And also the amendment office, Georgianne and Crystal in the amendment office in particular, worked really closely with Steve, really hard to make this work. I want to thank the Public Service Commission and the Maryland Energy Administration and the Office of People's Counsel and other government entities that we interacted with that were incredibly helpful. And I want to thank all the advocates, even the ones who are mad at me right now. I think, they've been a really important part of this process. They get a bad name, but they do have a lot of knowledge and insight to offer us when we're working on legislation. So with that, the bill's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, we're going to do a roll call. Vice Chair Guyton.
Yes.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Aye.
Delegate Lewis.
Aye.
Delegate Jacobs. No. Delegate Holmes.
Aye.
Delegate Healy.
Aye.
Delegate Long.
Aye.
Delegate Baker.
No.
Delegate Allen.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer.
No.
Delegate Odom.
Aye.
Delegate Anderson.
No.
Delegate Baylor.
Yes.
Delegate Morgan.
No.
Delegate Ziegler.
Yes.
Delegate Foley.
Yes.
Delegate Boyce.
Yes.
Delegate Stein.
Yes.
And the chair also votes yes. Bill passes. Does anyone wish to be added as a co-sponsor? Vice Chair Guyton, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, Delegate Lewis, Delegate Holmes, Delegate Healy, Delegate Long, Delegate Allen, Delegate Odom, Delegate Baylor, Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Foley, and Delegate Stein. Mind reading that back, Steve?
For co-sponsors, I have Vice Chair Guyton, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo, Delegate Lewis, Delegate Holmes, Delegate Healy, Delegate Long, Delegate Allen, Delegate Odom, Delegate Baylor, Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Foley, and Delegate Stein.
Okay, everybody good? All right, thank you all so much. I'm sorry it's so late. Get some rest, and we'll see you all tomorrow on the floor.